Okay, should be coming up any moment. Alrighty then. So, just to kind of touch on a bit from last week. Last week we focused on the whole identity security system. Something I want to mention. Um, because of the latest version, this first link in the weekly folder, Introduction to Identity, when I went through that myself, they'd updated it mentioning this business of the fallback policy, that you could put that in place, and that forces everything in your application to require authentication, right? That they have to log in before they can get anywhere. Now, the workaround I showed you is you can put the allow anonymous attribute at the top of a controller, for example, and then that allows you to access everything in that controller without being authenticated. Yeah, it's not a bad approach, but for the little small amount of work it saves, because in the end we had it basically all the attributes everywhere except maybe 2 spots, right? That you saved that bit of work by doing the fallback policy. But when you start working with the identity pages, if you want to customize any of the views themselves, these Razor pages that are part of the identity system, then it becomes a nightmare because nothing is decorated with allow anonymous, and you just run into all kinds of issues when you start scaffolding them and modifying them. So I'm going to suggest, going forward, I've modified the posted solution for step 20, and I put it back so we don't use the fallback policy anymore. Let me just show you that. I mean, it's not a bad thing, and if you never need to worry much about identity, if you don't have to secure your application, then it's not a big deal, right? But if you do, then yeah, you're better off not to do this. So I've just commented it out for now. I left the code there. It is still in my copy paste file, but I put that note up in Blackboard to let you know. I don't strongly recommend this. In fact, I'll stay away from it for the most part. So putting that in place, all I really had to do is come to the patient controller and add authorize, right? That was the only real difference. Now, technically, I would have had to do the same on doctor, but I already had the authorized attribute there, to be honest. But I think that was in the doctor controller from earlier when I was just demonstrating how the authorized attribute worked before we put the fallback policy in place, right? But those are the only 2 places that I would have had to add it, okay, as opposed to or separate from putting this fallback policy in place requiring authenticated users everywhere, right? Okay, so honestly, for the value of it, it just really makes things messy if you want to customize the identity system. So better off to take it out. So that's the change I've made in the posted solution, and that's what I'm recommending you do going forward. Okay, that's one little thing. Oh, also while I'm here, to make the demonstrations work better today, I've also decided to go back and make this other change up here. Remember we first added roles to our identity system? I also, at the same time, we changed require confirmed account to false, right? So we could seed users and not have to worry about this business of them confirming, getting an email and so on. But guess what? We're about to implement email, right? So it actually, it makes sense to put it back to true at this point in time. And really another solution we could have done even then, putting this to true, all I really needed to do was come down into data, into our initializer for application DB. So in the application DB initializer, here, wherever we created a user, remember we created a new identity user, one here for the admin, one for a supervisor, et cetera, right? So all you have to do is set email confirmed equal to true. As you're setting all these other properties, the username and email, now we're still following that approach of having the email function as the username at the same time. So just add, comma and email confirmed as true. And do that whenever you see the user and you're fine, right? That way it won't bug you to say, okay, yeah, it's already been confirmed. We're good to go. Okay, so that works in harmony with making that change. Going back to program, right? Setting this to true. Okay, and that'll make sense as we get the email service up and actually working now. Okay, so those are just want to run over those couple little changes that I've made to the system, to our example application in preparation for the next steps. So in general, let me say it once more, I'm really not a fan of this policy. It's better to just be in control and put it where you need it. That's kind of my personal feeling on it. And especially with identity, it definitely makes your life much, much easier. Okay, I'm just going to close all tabs. All right. Any questions about any of those changes before we go on? Okay, it's kind of a preparatory point. Sorry to have to do that to you, but well, not really sorry, because we learned something, because that fallback policy could be useful in some circumstances. I just don't find that it's worth it, and especially when we get into customizing identity, which we're going to do not so much today, but down the road, it will make our lives much, much easier. All right, let's get into the new content then. I might as well stop and start the recording.